There we go.
How you doing, Grant?
Lovely. How are you?
Outstanding. It's good to be here.
Welcome. Hey, welcome everyone. So good to have you here with us tonight. I hope you guys are having a great day. Grant Baldwin here from the Speaker Lab, joined by my co-host this evening, Mr. Eric Ream. We are so excited that you're joining us. We've had literally thousands of people yesterday who joined us on the webinar. We have thousands of people registered for tonight. And apparently there's a lot of interest and intrigue in all things virtual speaking. So really glad you guys are here. As you are making your way in, go ahead and drop in the chat and let us know who you are and where you're from so we can say hey to you. We're going to get started here just a couple minutes at the top of the hour. But again, go ahead and as you're coming in, drop in the chat. Let us know who you are, where you're from. If we haven't had a chance to connect before, again, my name is Grant. I live with my family just outside of Nashville, Tennessee. I'll tell you about them in a bit. Eric, where are you located at and how's your day been?
Southern Indiana. It's been glorious, Grant. Thank you for asking.
The Hawaii of the Midwest.
That's right. So, God's country.
Eric and I, we had so much fun presenting on this info yesterday. If you were with us, maybe you're back for seconds, maybe you missed out on yesterday, maybe schedule, whatever happened. But we're really glad that you are joining us today. Again, go ahead and drop in the chat. Let us know who you are, where you're from, so we can say hey to you. Got a lot of people jumping in here. I see we got Rick in Dallas, Michelle in Georgia, Brad in North Carolina. We got Christoph in Toronto, Ira in California, John in California, Barbara, Marcus, Nate in New Orleans, Linda in British Columbia, Sean in Scotland, Mark in Pennsylvania, Skylar in Illinois, Milton in Philadelphia, Diane in Kansas City, Richard in Georgia, Jillian in Florida, Alea in Connecticut, Jazz from Southern California, Scott in Denton, Texas, Vigad from Hawaii, Sonia, Dwayne, Shayna, Pam, Tracy, Stephen, Karen, Luis, Alan, Jim, Janelle. Oh my goodness. All of the people are here tonight. Hey, welcome again. So glad you guys are here. Also, before we get started, we're going to get going here in just a couple minutes at the top of the hour, but we wanted to hop on here a few minutes early just to A, say hey to you, but B, wanted to make sure you can see and hear everything. So if you would drop in the chat, let us know. Can you see us? Can you hear us? Everything coming through okay? Good.
Awesome. Eric, you know what's in Scotland, right, Grant?
I don't know, but I'm getting ready. I bet you're getting ready to tell me.
Scotch.
Well, this is true.
It's my favorite drink. So I'm glad my friend from Scotland's on here. McLaren 12. That's my drink. That's my jam.
Good. Hey, again, as you are coming in, we're going to get rolling here in about 2 minutes at the top of the hour. So before we get rolling, if there's anything you need to do, get you something to drink. As speakers, whether you're speaking in person or virtually, make sure you have plenty of water. Make sure you are well hydrated. If you need to run to the bathroom, if you need to tell the kids or the spouse or whoever to leave you alone, turn off Netflix. All right. Tiger King is over. You've already seen it. We want you to be locked in, dialed in, and focused here. All right. What we're going to be talking about can really have a significant impact in your business and in your life. Again, keep coming in. Get you something to write with if you need to. Pen, pencil, marker, crayon, lipstick, chapstick, nail polish, blood, whatever you need to use. Would not recommend the blood, but if you need to, do what you got to do. We do have the chat on, but it's only on our side where we can see it. Our team can see it. We have Chris, we have Melissa, we have Casey in the chat. So if you have a question, you can drop that in there, and we are we'll try to answer those questions as we go. As far as schedule goes, just so everyone knows, we're going to be about an hour or so, and then at that point, Eric and I are going to stick around and do some Q&A. So we'll probably be an hour, maybe a couple minutes past the hour there, and then we'll do some live Q&A for anyone who wants to hang out and has questions over anything that we cover. All right, sound good? All right, we'll wait just another minute or so. Again, if you haven't already, go ahead and drop in the chat. Let us know who you are and where you're from so we can say hey to you. I see we've got, let me scroll here. Richard and Walter, Amanda, David, Marcus, Calvin, Mark, Barbie, Josephine, Uchina, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Barbara, Mark, John, Jackie, Prudence, John, Sean, Walter, LaShorna, Al, Malika, Joan, Jackie, Paul, Greg, Jim, Sam, Beth, Birdie, Melinda. Oh my goodness. All the people are here. Welcome. Again, so glad you guys are here. We also have Eric Ream, who is in the house, who is joining us this evening. Eric, how you feeling? You good?
I am fantastic, Grant. I'm excited about what we're going to be talking about today. This is going to be fun.
Yes, sir. All right. I'm ready to get rolling here. Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and turn off our cameras. That way you guys can focus on the content. You're not going to be distracted by our pretty faces there. All right, let's jump in. Again, so glad you guys are here. Glad you guys are joining us. Whether this is your first time hanging out with us or you've been following us for a little while, again, really, really glad you're here. There's a lot happening in the world right now. And so a lot of speakers are thinking about virtual speaking. And so if you've done some virtual speaking before and you want to up your game, or if this is just a brand new thing and you're trying to pivot to virtual speaking, we want to walk through a step-by-step plan of exactly what you need to be doing and exactly what you need to be thinking about. Now, I have a favor to ask of you right out of the gate here. My favor is that you would be fully present. All right. So again, I want you to turn off Facebook. I want you to turn off the TV, tell the family to leave you alone. If you can be fully present, I want you to type that in the chat. Type in fully present. Type in fully present. Now, again, obviously in this context, especially when it comes to virtual speaking, you can't see the audience. I cannot see you right now. And so we're really going to depend heavily on the chat. So again, keep dropping that in there and let us know that you are fully present. Now, also stick around to the end. We are going to give you a bonus, the virtual speaking stimulus. It's 3 bonus interviews with leaders in the speaking industry who share their best advice for booking and presenting virtual gigs. So all you got to do is stick around to the end and we will automatically email that to you. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to opt in for anything. Just stick around to the end and we will automatically email you that in the next 24 hours. Now, on this training, we're going to talk about a variety of different things. We're going to talk about why you need to offer virtual speaking options now. We're going to talk about the current state of the speaking union, why virtual and in-person is not an either-or choice. This is really important. We're going to talk about 4 keys to success as a virtual speaker, 3 questions you need to ask right now as a speaker, how to set up your virtual speaking stage, including free options, all right? Also going to talk about how to create an experience more than just a talk and why this matters, and the one thing you should not be doing right now. Now, when we think of speaking, we usually think of this. We usually think of a person standing on a stage, right? This is a few pictures of me. I've done a little bit of speaking in my days, you may know. And we usually think of one human standing on a physical stage talking to a collection of other humans. That's what we think of. But right now is obviously a little bit different. Now, if you're familiar with my story, you know that has been much of my journey. And so since we're going to be spending a few minutes together, let me give you the quick nutshell. So I'm married to my high school sweetheart. Oh, isn't that precious? Go ahead and drop an aw in the chat there. So actually, this is fun. You're going to like this. When we started dating in high school, I was a freshman. She was a junior. Oh, okay. What's up now? #baller. So married myself a cougar there. Pretty proud of that. That's actually that picture there on the right is when we first got married. That was the apartment that we lived in. You go up those stairs, second door on the left. And that's where we started our life together. And so married my high school sweetheart. I attended Bible college, began working as a youth pastor. Also see some comments that I had hair back then on my head and on my face. It was a big day. It's been a long time. And so I started working as a youth pastor. And in 2006, I decided to pursue a career as a full-time speaker. I decided I wanted to do this and slowly started booking some gigs. And a year or so after I started speaking, we were hit with what you might recall as the Great Recession. And so I share this with you because I know firsthand what it's like to build a speaking business in the midst of an unknown and uncertain world. And I know for many speakers right now who are feeling this, the unknown, the uncertainty of where we are in the world. And so I understand what that's like, and I understand what speakers need to do in this moment. I remember when I got started speaking, I had a good friend of mine tell me that speaking is a high-paying manual labor job. Speaking is a high-paying manual labor job, meaning that we get paid really well to stand on stage and talk, but the nature of speaking is difficult. Speaking in the traditional sense is still one of the best ways to make an impact and an income, but there are certainly challenges with speaking in the traditional sense. There's the non-glamorous side of travel. I've spent a significant amount of time on airplanes and in airports and in hotels and being away from my family. That's that second picture from the left. There's actually a picture of me sleeping in an airport, DFW in Dallas. Spent a lot of time passing through there. And that's on the far right is a little bit of TSA love, it would appear. And the reality is, like, when you speak, you travel. You have to get on planes. You have to be away from your family a lot. There's also the physical and geographical limitations of speaking. The nature of speaking is that you are speaking to one audience in one place at one time. And when you're speaking to that audience, you cannot be speaking to another audience. So in each of these pictures where apparently I like to raise my hand, you can see that in that moment when I'm talking to that audience, I cannot be talking to anybody else. So there's the true physical and geographical limitations of speaking. And then there's also the logistical headaches of live events. I mean, the reality is a lot of details and planning goes into putting on a live event. So if you look at these pictures, you think about all that has to happen to put these events on: finding a space, finding room, finding the stage, the lighting, the screens, filling the room with people, the logistics of those people getting there, coordinating schedules. There's just so much that has to happen in order to put on a live event. However, when it comes to virtual speaking, these challenges are less of an issue. Virtual speaking means a few things. Virtual speaking means no travel. You don't have to get on a plane. You don't have to go anywhere. I am home right now. Eric is home right now. Most of you are home right now. And so virtual speaking means that you don't have to go anywhere. It also means this. It means that you have the ability to impact a broader audience and reach more people. There are people joining us right now in this training who are literally all over the world. All over the world right now. You also have the ability to speak at more events. I was talking with a speaker the other day who said, I can only do a few events in a week. Yet I can't do that every single week. There's no speaker who can physically speak at 365 gigs a year. Like, you just can't do that. And or is that wise to do? But with virtual gigs, he said, I can do multiple gigs in the same day and never get on a plane. And so you have the ability to speak at more events. You also have less lead time for booking events. I've talked to a lot of speakers. We're going to talk with Eric here in just a few minutes about what he's seen as well. But for most in-person events, there's usually anywhere from 3 to 6 months out that it's going to take to book gigs. Sometimes a little bit further, sometimes a little bit shorter. But most of the time, it's going to take a little while. Whereas right now with virtual events, many of them are booking within a week, within 2 weeks. So it is there's a much less lead time for booking gigs. And the other thing that the virtual speaking means, it's a lot more time at home with family. And if you know anything about me, you know that I love speaking. I love entrepreneurship, but I love my family. I absolutely adore my girls. Like I mentioned, I'm married to my high school sweetheart. We have 3 beautiful daughters. It's me and a house full of women. It is awesome. It is absolutely the best. And so virtual speaking allows you to be home with your family more. Now, there's 2 other big reasons that you should consider virtual speaking. Number one is that virtual speaking also means that pants are optional. I don't know if any of you saw this on Good Morning America. The guy literally didn't have pants on. Did anybody see that? Let me know in the chat if you saw that. You can see in the other picture there. I've done something not quite as bad. There's a training I did where I had a button-up shirt on top, swim trunks on the bottom. So virtual speaking apparently means that the pants are optional. Just for the record, I am wearing pants right now. The other thing that's really important here is that virtual speaking is less affected by global pandemics. And obviously we are in a really unique time in the world. I know we're all tired of it. We're worn out from it. We're tired of hearing unprecedented times, those sort of things. And obviously this pandemic has dramatically affected the speaking industry, but because of virtual speaking, it has actually made it's less affected by what's going on in the world. And so I believe that you can be a successful virtual speaker even in this COVID-19 world. Now, what makes me think that, what makes me believe that, is because there are speakers, including our students, who are doing it right now. For example, here's a speaker who messaged me, hey, just saw your post. I've turned my 3-day workshop into a 5-part virtual masterclass. I launched this MVP over the weekend, made about $9,000, not a huge result, but it's validation people are still spending. And I've been booked for 3 virtual events, 2 with Microsoft and 1 with Dell. Another speaker said, I've booked 4 virtual gigs, 3 paid since this COVID ordeal started, with some good prospects in the pipeline. Here's some more of our students. Joel said, hey, Grant, was hired yesterday by a Healthcare Underwriters State Association for a virtual conference. I'm speaking Thursday, right? I don't remember when this was posted, but whatever yesterday was, and speaking Thursday, that's a pretty short little window there, right? Another one from Ajita said, I've secured 2 contracts to train teachers how to recognize mental distress among youth in an online classroom setting, secured a seminar discussing grief and compassion fatigue among first responders, and secured a virtual keynote. And then this one, the bulk of my business is coaching consulting, so that revenue is as strong as ever. But in addition to that, I've booked multiple paid virtual speaking gigs. Look at this. This last sentence is really important. I've done more of them in the last few weeks than I did traditional gigs last last year. So again, we are seeing firsthand how there's a lot of opportunity for virtual speaking gigs. Now, in addition to what we're seeing with a lot of students, I want to introduce you to Eric. Now, Eric is a very successful speaker. He went through our Booked and Paid to Speak program many years ago. He's going to talk about that in just a second. But Eric has done a great job pivoting to virtual engagements. And so I'm going to let him share a little bit about that. Eric, you there?
I'm here.
All right, man, fire away. Give us the nutshell of what your journey has been like.
Well, Grant, as you know, I was figuring out my speaking business and started looking at it around 2014, 2015. I'd made about $9,000, kind of figuring out on my own. That I ran into you at the end of 2015, decided to join the program. And then in 2016, utilizing what you had taught me, I made about 30 grand in that first year. Then 2017 was about 150. 2018 was 200,000, and then in 2000 and over 3 years, there you can see I made around $350,000 in speaking, just utilizing what you taught me. It was a fantastic first 3 years, but it got even better because in 2019, last year, I was able to walk away from my full-time job and become a full-time speaker. How fantastic is that? Better yet, going into 2020, Grant, I was riding a huge wave of momentum. In fact, I was scheduled to make about 340 grand going into 2020 and 2020. And as April was approaching, I had the gig set up where it was going to be my best month yet. It was fantastic. Couldn't wait, Grant. But then, COVID-19 hit. And in fact, you and I would talk about this. We joke about this, Grant. We knew it was real when the NBA was suspended. When they suspended the NBA season, we said, this might be real. And so within that short period of time, Grant, I lost 9 paid gigs. What I mean by lost or being affected by that, I had a few that were canceled, several that were postponed. But the bottom line, that was $154,000 of revenue that was affected. So everything came to a screeching halt in April and May and June. And so I had to figure out what I was going to do, Grant. The bottom line is we're a single income family. I have a family of 5. They depend on me to go out, create revenue, and bring it back. So I had to figure out what I was going to do. So I suddenly started looking at this virtual gig stuff with a lot of keen interest. And so I went out and I was able to do some stuff with that. And we're going to talk about my journey in the next few slides coming up here, Grant. But the bottom line is I was hit hard by it and I had to pivot to the virtual gig scene.
Absolutely. And so the pivots you have made a significant return on what you've done now. And we're going to talk more about that. And so in our training today, we're going to walk through some of the steps that Eric's been taking, some of the things that we have been seeing. And then at the end of this training, I want to make you an offer to help you book more virtual gigs faster through our all new premium training program called Virtual Speaking Pro. And so I don't want you to invest in it unless that we fulfill our promise to you today. But if we deliver, I want you to at least consider this special webinar only offer. All right. So this is an all new program that we've been putting together. And we're really, really excited about this. Again, we're going to give you exactly what you need to be doing. But if you want to go deeper into this and you want our help to book virtual gigs faster, then we'll tell you in a little bit about Virtual Speaking Pro. All right. Now, there have been a lot of major shifts happening in the speaking industry recently. So I want to give you a quick kind of state of the speaking union, right? I want to give you kind of an overview of what's happening. Number one is this. We're seeing that the speaking industry isn't going anywhere, that events are still booking speakers. If we go all the way back, live events involving speakers have been around literally since the Greeks. The speaking industry, it has survived wars, depressions, recessions, 9/11. It can and will certainly survive a pandemic. So I'm not worried at all about the speaking industry. It's not going anywhere. Events are still booking speakers. The second thing we're seeing is that companies, churches, schools, associations, and groups still experience problems that speakers can help solve. Okay, we're going to talk more about that in just a second. And then the last thing we're seeing right now, number 3, is that virtual speaking will never replace in-person events, but we have seen and will continue to see a surge in virtual speaking needs and opportunities. So virtual speaking opportunities have been around for years, but only recently, due to COVID, have they really become more prominent and something that more and more organizations and events are interested in, and thus more speakers need to be paying attention to. Maybe you've seen some of this in the news recently. LinkedIn has doubled down on virtual events. I saw that headline recently. Virtual events are the new normal. Here's how to plan one if you wanted to do that. We've also seen this is baffling to me. Zoom's daily active users jumped from 10 million to over 200 million in 3 months. Just completely absurd, totally ridiculous, right? And so now all of a sudden we have this massive, massive influx of people who have gone to Zoom, who are online, who are looking for virtual event opportunities, right? And it creates more opportunities for speakers. And then lastly, I saw this recently, Oprah to host interactive virtual events. Listen, people, if Oprah is getting involved with virtual events, you know it's serious. It's something you need to be paying attention to. And so as speakers, we must adapt to the changing market. The market is absolutely changing. Now, again, the speaking industry as a whole is not going anywhere, but at this current moment, it does look different. I like this quote from Wayne Gretzky. He said, "I skate to where the puck is going to be, not where it has been." Listen, at some point in the recent past, the world looked different than it does today. And so we can't say, we're just waiting for it to get back to normal. Listen, it may never get back to normal. There may be a new normal. And so as speakers, we got to pay attention here to not only where things are at, but where are things going to be. And right now in the speaking industry, there's a lot of opportunities with virtual. Look at other industries that have required pivots. Restaurants and fast food have had to close their dining rooms and have been turned into carry-out or delivery companies, right? You even take a major restaurant chain like an Olive Garden, and although they are primarily a sit-down restaurant, they have had to pivot to offer delivery. Now, there are certainly restaurants that have traditionally offered both dine-in and delivery options. This is a common thing with pizza places. So, in fact, as a quick side note, that picture on the left, some pizza place our family went to in Seattle, where they just apparently have these massive, massive pizzas. And so the truth of the matter is, like, when it comes to a pizza place, is they may allow you to eat in, they may offer you to carry out, they may offer you delivery, and so we still need pizza, regardless of how you get it. Now, what does this pivot have for restaurants and fast food chains have to do with your speaking business? Well, it's important that you understand this, that physical speaking and virtual speaking is not an either or choice. This is really, really important that you get this. Physical speaking and virtual speaking is not an either or choice. You can have your cake and eat it too. Now, talking about Olive Garden and pizza and cake has made me hungry. Anybody else? If so, just give me a yes in the chat. Anybody else hungry? I love me some cake. And so you can have your cake and eat it too. This is not about, if I do physical speaking, I can't do virtual. And if I do virtual, I can't do physical. No. You can do both. Now, what does this mean for you? Well, when it comes to your speaking business, remember two things. One is that you get to decide the rules of the game and what success looks like for you. And number two is that you are free to change the rules and the success definition at any time. Now, what does this mean? It means you may decide to do 100% virtual. You may decide to do 100% in person. You may decide to do 50-50. Maybe you had been doing 100% in person and this pandemic has affected that. So now you want to pivot and do more virtual. Here's what's really, really important. There is no right or wrong combination. You get to decide what makes sense for you. So Eric, I'm curious, again, for the majority of your speaking career, you have focused more on in-person events. With what's happened recently with COVID, obviously the in-person opportunities have been affected. And so now how are you thinking about this in your own business of in-person events versus virtual events?
Graham, looking at it totally differently. Before COVID hit, I didn't really take virtual speaking seriously, to be honest with you. And when I was thinking about becoming a professional speaker, virtual didn't even enter my mind. It wasn't until I was forced to think about it and I lost those 9 gigs. In fact, in the entire month of April and the first part of May, all I did was virtual gigs. So it really opened my eyes that I can still get my message out there and still deliver value and do it in a different way. And so I'm looking at it totally different now. And it's going to be, could be a significant part of my business moving forward.
Absolutely. And so here's what's also important is right now things look different, right? And so you may pivot, you may choose to pivot to do more virtual things, but then you're like, well, what if I don't want to do just virtual? I want to, when in-person events start to come back more and more, and they will come back, we will get back to some new sense of normal going forward in the speaking industry. But remember, again, you are free to change. Recently, I've talked to speakers who had done exclusively in-person events, who've kind of gotten a taste of virtual gigs and now are going all in on virtual. And some that are doing a few virtual gigs, but are still focusing on booking in person. And so your pivot doesn't have to be permanent. Regardless of what you decide, you're not making a permanent decision. You're not getting a tattoo here. So again, your pivot doesn't have to be permanent. Now, I want to walk through here 4 keys to success as a virtual speaker. So I'm going to go ahead and give you these 4, and then we're going to dig into these a little bit more in depth. So first one, number 1, is that you have to solve one specific problem for one specific audience. Solve one specific problem for one specific audience. Number 2 is that you need to be proactive in marketing your virtual solution. You need to be proactive in marketing your virtual solution. Number 3 is you want to set up your virtual setup like a pro. Set up your virtual setup like a pro. And number 4 is to master your virtual experience. Master your virtual experience. So this is the roadmap we're going to walk through here for the next few minutes. How's everybody doing? We feeling good so far? If you're with me, type in the chat. I'm with you. Type in, keep on keeping on. Type in, I'm picking up what you're laying down. Are you catching what I'm casting? My daughter's wanted me to tell you that. So drop in the chat. Let me know if you are alive and well. We good? All right, let's jump in here. Number one is, again, you want to solve one specific problem for one specific audience. Solve one specific problem for one specific audience. Now, whether you are speaking at an in-person event or you're on a virtual stage, one thing remains the same. You still have to solve one specific problem for one specific audience. We have talked a lot about this in everything we do here at the Speaker Lab. And maybe you've heard us talk about the difference between being a steakhouse and a buffet. So what we mean by that is, let's imagine that we were looking for a good steak. We have a choice. We could go to a steakhouse, we could go to a buffet where steak is one of 100 different things that they offer, and they're all mediocre at best. Or we could go to a steakhouse where they do one thing, but they do one thing really, really, really well. So they don't do tacos, they don't do lasagna, they don't do pizza, they don't do cupcakes, they do steak. And as speakers, that's what you want to be. You want to say, I solve one specific problem for one specific audience. Now, it's counterintuitive because we think the more things we offer, the more things we can speak about, the more audiences we can speak to, the more opportunities that we will have. But no. You don't want to be a buffet. Nobody's excited about going to a buffet because everything's mediocre. If you want tacos, you go to a taco place. If you want steak, you go to a steak place. You want to focus on one thing and solving that one thing for one specific audience. Now, there's 3 questions to ask for your speaking business. Number 1 is, who do you speak to? Number 2 is, what problem do you solve? And then number 3 is, where do those people gather? Now, when it comes to the third question, the fact that it's virtual absolutely changes things. Where do those people gather? Because they're now gathering online. So where do those people gather? Well, and why does this change things? Well, virtual gigs are just frankly simpler to put together. We have had literally thousands and thousands of people register for this training who are all over the world. You didn't have to travel here. Everyone here right now is, again, probably at home, literally all over the world. I'm here in Nashville with my family. And if we were going to get everyone that's on this training right now together in a room, do you understand how much work and preparation and logistics that would require? So virtual gigs means fewer logistics. And so because of that, because everyone is able to join from their own home, it means fewer logistics, and fewer logistics means more opportunities. There's a lot of opportunities right now for virtual engagements. Now, this next slide is really important, okay? Just because physical events aren't happening today doesn't mean their problem has been solved. If you have had events canceled, rescheduled, postponed, affected in any way due to COVID, it doesn't mean their problem has suddenly been solved. Eric and I have both had events that were supposed to be happening recently, now all of a sudden are not happening, have been rescheduled or postponed or affected in one way or another. And it doesn't mean that all of a sudden their problem has been solved. So you still have the opportunity, and I would say the responsibility, to help serve and to problem solve. So again, first thing, number 1, is that you want to solve one specific problem for one specific audience. Number 2, we tracking? If you're with me, go ahead and drop in the chat. Let me know you're with me. We good? Okay, let's keep moving on. Number 2 is you want to be proactive in marketing your virtual solution. Keyword there is virtual. So let's imagine for a second you are hiring someone to bake cupcakes. I don't know if you've noticed this. I love food. I love cupcakes. I love cake. And so I like to use a lot of food analogies. But let's imagine you were hiring someone to bake cupcakes for a party that you were having, and you heard about someone who bakes these amazing cupcakes. And so you go to their website, you want to check out what it is that they do. And everything that you see on their site is about baking bread, but not about cupcakes. And so all of the pictures, the menu items, the testimonials is all about how good and how amazing their bread is. And so you're left kind of going like, okay, clearly they're a great baker, but I don't need bread. I need cupcakes. And so just because they can bake bread doesn't mean they can bake cupcakes. And so what does that mean for us as speakers? If you don't show and tell potential clients your virtual solutions, they won't know you offer them. Just because you're just because you're a speaker doesn't necessarily mean that people will know that you are a virtual speaker. What do you have to do? You have to connect the dots for them. You have to let them know your marketing assets should address your virtual offerings. Your marketing assets should address your virtual offerings. So think of your offerings like a restaurant menu. Okay. You want to make it clear what problem that you solve. And then this is really important. Number two, make it clear how you solve that problem in a virtual environment. Make it clear how you solve that problem in a virtual environment. Let me give you a couple of examples. This is a friend of mine, Clint Pulver, and on his website, he's made some updates here that it's more than just, hey, here's what I speak about, but here's what I speak about virtually. Here's what this looks like. All right. So it says at the top there, choose your virtual topic. Look at this one from my buddy Vin Zhang, who's a speaker. He has here virtual workshops. He talks about the different virtual opportunities that he offers. So it's really important that you make sure your website reflects your virtual offerings. Now, let's also talk about virtual demo videos here. And what you want to do is demonstrate your virtual presentation skills, but also show your virtual stage. We're going to talk more about this in a second, but production value matters and can absolutely increase your fees. So you want to show that you're a great speaker, but you also want to show your virtual setup. Okay. So here's an example from, again, Clint, and this is a new demo video that he has. And you can see in the corner there, a top virtual motivational speaker. This is a video that's on YouTube. You can go find it. And so he's showing not only what it's like to work with him in a virtual setting, but also giving a taste of his virtual studio. Here's another example from Vin where, again, this is a virtual workshop preview of what it would be like to work with him. Because remember, it's a different context presenting virtually. Just because you can speak on a stage to an audience doesn't mean that it's going to translate perfectly to a virtual environment. And so you want to show a potential client what that looks like. Now, if you build it, they will not come. If you build it, they will not come. Quick pop quiz. Can anyone name that movie? Drop it in the chat. Name that movie, one of the best sports movies of all time. And so just because you have a website and a video that addresses your virtual offerings doesn't mean anyone cares. So right now you may be thinking, all right, I'm clear on who I speak to. I'm clear on what the problem is that I solve. I got my website. I've updated it. I've got my video. Now I just sit back and I wait for the virtual gigs to come in. No. The next step of the process is you have to have a system. Whether you are focused on in-person or you're focused on virtual gigs, you absolutely must have a system to consistently find and book gigs. Now, this has been a huge reason for Eric's success. So Eric, I'm going to pass it over to you now, and I want you to kind of walk through how you go about finding and booking gigs.
Awesome, Grant. Just as a side note, Hoosiers is the best sports movie ever. Just throwing it out there. All right, so he's right. Your system will make or break your business. Now, Grant, I will tell you that this is probably the major thing that was helpful for me as I had to pivot to my virtual business. So you've got to have a system. The big part of the system is you've got to have a CRM pipeline, which is the backbone of your system. Now, what is a CRM? A CRM is a customer relationship management software. Now, for those of you that don't have one, you can go to HubSpot. If you can, Casey or someone can type in chat, just type in HubSpot. That's a free CRM if you're looking to get a CRM. But I will tell you that my day starts and ends with my CRM. My system's on that. Now, a pipeline is made up of predetermined sales stages. So, Grant, within the CRM, we teach a methodology in our course and with our students of a 5-stage sales process when you're getting booked and paid to speak. Now, this same process also works in the virtual world. So a pipeline is made up of predetermined sales stages and is supported by a methodology of how to move a prospect through it. So, Grant, whether the prospect's virtual or whether the prospect's a live prospect on a live stage, you're still going to go through the same methodology, and it's important that you have that methodology. So let's talk about today, for the purpose of today's talk, what are the 4 keys to success when you're talking about your system? Well, number one, you've got to be consistent, Grant. I can't tell you how important this is. Consistent effort, meaning that you have a regular pipeline management. You're doing something to manage that pipeline, the 5 stages that we talk about and that we teach in our courses. And so consistent effort is important. In fact, I'm the director of education at the Speaker Lab, Grant. So I'm so grateful to be a part of it. One thing I always teach our students is I'd much rather you be consistent on a daily basis than to take like 2 weeks off and then do a huge amount of effort for 6 or 7 hours on one day and then take a lot of time off. I'd rather you be consistent. So that's number one. one. Number two is next action, which means you always have to identify the next action with each active prospect. So Grant, right now I have 45 active prospects in my pipeline. I have a next action item identified for each and every one of them. I have 45 next action items identified. Number three, you have to follow the system. So there's a system that we teach. There's a system that's in place. You have to follow that. So follow that predetermined methodology and the follow-up process. It's one thing to have a methodology, Grant, and a system. It's another thing to actually do it. And this last one is probably the most important one, Grant. And that is when you're working your system and you're out there working with prospects, you have to be respectful. I can't talk about this more enough, because being respectful is so important. You got to make it. You can't make it about you. You have to play the long game. At the bottom line, folks, is that when you get in the speaking business, it becomes a really small world, in that event planners talk to one another, good or bad. So if you do a great job for them, if you're respectful and you're professional, they're going to remember you. They're going to pass your name around, and you're going to get more gigs. Just the opposite applies. If you're not respectful, and if you're not a good person to work with, you're not organized, they're going to pass that around as well. But the bottom line, Grant, is this. If they remember nothing else of those 4 keys to success, remember this one thing: a consistent effort wins every time. Grant, I will tell you, I'm not the best speaker. There's probably a lot of folks on here that are a lot better than me. They have a better message than me. But because I am consistent, I can book gigs on a regular basis.
Awesome. Very good. Let's keep cruising on here. Number three is to set up your virtual setup like a pro. Set up your virtual setup like a pro. So let me give you, first of all, 3 big ideas for your virtual setup. Number 1 is that production value matters. Production value matters. So here we have 2 pictures of the same thing. We have a burger, fries, and a beverage. Now, even though they offer the same thing, we all understand that the value and the price is going to be vastly different. Why? Because quality and production value matters. True? Out of curiosity, just drop in the chat. Which would you prefer, left or right? Left or right? Drop it in the chat. Let us know. So number 1, production value matters. Number 2 is that great production won't save a bad presentation. Great production won't save a bad presentation. Let me give an example. Anybody remember the movie Waterworld? Drop in the chat if you remember this movie. The movie Waterworld from, I think, back in the 90s with Kevin Costner. And at the time, it was the most expensive movie ever made. $175 million budget to create this movie. Critics just destroyed it. As did not go over real well. So the box office revenue was about $88.2 million, which seems high, but given that they spent $175 million, means that they had a financial loss of nearly $87 million. So even though it at the time was the most expensive movie ever made, it doesn't save a bad presentation. Great production won't save a bad presentation. And then number 3, you don't need to spend a lot of money for great production. You don't need to spend a lot of money for great production. This is a big misconception. You can still do high quality without breaking the bank. So I'm going to give you 3 tools for your free tools for your virtual setup. Okay. So first of all, microphone, headphones. Most of us have some pair of headphones, like some AirPods or earbuds or headphones from Apple maybe. And a lot of times they have a built-in microphone, and most of those work really, really well. So if you already have one of those, that may be just fine to get you started with for a microphone. Number 2 is your camera, is your computer's camera. Most of the computers that we have today, whether it's a laptop or desktop, have a built-in camera that are actually really, really good. You could also, depending on your cell phone, if you have a smartphone that has a really good camera, that is something that you could use as well and connect it to your computer. So there's a lot of good options that exist right now for cameras without you having to spend anything. And then the third option, whenever it comes to lighting is one of those things that is really important. But one of the best lighting sources that you can have, the sun. The sun is incredibly effective for light. I don't know if you've noticed that. And so all 3 of these are things that you can use for free to get your virtual setup set up. All right. Now, as you're getting things set up, You don't want to let perfection be the enemy of progress. Again, let me say that. Don't let perfection be the enemy of progress. Work with what you've got, do it with excellence, and improve as you go. Now, inside of our new Virtual Speaking Pro program, one of the things that we include is walkthroughs of 8 different virtual speaker studio setups. So you're going to see some that spent literally thousands of dollars. So I showed you, some screenshots from like Clint Pulver. Clint's a good friend, and he has an amazing virtual studio that he has built in his basement that costs thousands of dollars. You're going to see other people who have spent less than $100 and how they make it work. We're also going to give you tours of my home office here, as well as Eric's office as well. And we're going to talk more about that in a bit. All right, last thing, number 4 here is to master your virtual experience. Master your virtual experience. Eric, I'm going to turn it over to you because, again, I know this is a big thing that you have done that is more than just a talk. It's more than a presentation, but you've worked really hard to create an experience. So can you talk us through what you have done with that?
Yeah, well, the bottom line, Grant, is when you think about virtual events, not all virtual events are created equal. In fact, there are 3 types of platforms that you need to consider when you're thinking about taking your message and taking it to a virtual setting. Number 1, there's the live setting, whether it be a live keynote at a conference where we have 3,000 or 4,000 people, 1,500 people on there, or it's a breakout session. Bottom line is it is live. The second type is a pre-recorded event, meaning that you're recording it ahead of time. It's going to be sent out to the audience. They can consume it at their own time or at a predestined time. But the bottom line is you get a pre-recorded ahead of time. And then the third one is a combination of both, where you may have pre-recorded content, but also live content. What you need to consider, though, Grant, is you have to choose a format that aligns with your skill, your comfort, and meets client needs. What I mean by that, Grant, is that it takes a skill to be a live virtual speaker. It's totally different speaking to an audience of 500 that you can't see. And so you have to have a skill for that, to be able to capture the audience attention. It takes effort to do that. It takes a skill to do that. Also, if you're doing something recorded and it's a keynote, that takes a skill because the production value has to be higher because you have more time to edit. You have more time to think about how you're going to present that. And so that takes a skill. So if you're really good and you're creative in production value, that might be something. Also, comfort level. Like, for instance, we did this thing live. We're doing it live. We did it live before this webinar, Grant, and it was the first time that you and I did it, and we had it mess up, and you couldn't hear me, and I had to log out and log back in. So if you're not comfortable with something going wrong, by the way, Grant, something will go wrong in a live setting, then that might not be the setting for you. And you also have to meet the client's needs. So for me, Grant, I had a client that contacted me. They're in 25 different states. They said, can you do something that's recorded and live? So I said, sure, I can do that. So I developed some modules for them. They sent them out ahead of time, and then we do 1 or 2 webinars throughout the modules, and we do those live and we do Q&A. So it was a combination. So it met my skill, it met my comfort level, also met the client's needs. Now, if you follow the process that we're talking about, Grant, today, and if you follow the process in our courses that we outline in those, you're going to get hired. We guarantee it. We've been doing this a while now. I know I'm living proof of it. You're going to get hired. The key to remember, though, is once you get hired for that first virtual gig, your performance begins even before you hit the virtual stage. So just know that as soon as they decide we're going to go with you, performance begins. So what I mean by that, Grant, is they're going to remember what it was like to work with you. They're going to remember what it was like as far as their comfort level, how they felt with you, and all those things are important. So we're going to give you today 3 steps to take before you actually get on the virtual stage. Number 1, Grant, you have to have that pre-event call. So you want to have that call with the event planner, and you want to talk to them about the logistics. One of the things you want to do is you want them to get to commit to rehearsing the event before the actual event. So that's point number 2. You want to rehearse the tech with the client. So you and I rehearsed it, Grant, even today. We talked about all the different levers we're going to pull, how we're going to do different things. So you have to talk the client, work with the client and ask them questions about the software, the platform, what the expectations are. Is there going to be somebody there with you? Who's going to answer the chats? All those kind of things. And then number 3, Grant, is you have to schedule the post-event call. Now, this is the magic sauce when it comes to being a speaker, whether it's virtual or live. I can't tell you how many speakers don't do this, Grant, and that is get the client or the event planner commit to having a post call with you. And during that post call, we'll give you a checklist in the course. It's one of the things we provide you where you walk them through that checklist. And that's where you get referrals, Grant. That's where you get testimonials. That's where you get ideas about maybe coming back and working with them on future events. So you got to have those three things. Now, one thing we want to remember, Grant, is that the client will remember what it was like to work with you. So make it positive. At the end of the day, people will remember how you made them feel. So if you made them feel good about the experience, you made them feel like it was a positive experience, then you're going to increase your chances that they're going to want you to come back, and they're going to refer you to other event planners.
Yeah, let's talk about a good example of this. Our family, we love going to Disney parks. We've been to all 6 Disney parks in the U.S. multiple times. We are pros at park hopping and fast passes. In fact, how many of you have been to a Disney park? Type yes in the chat. Any other big Disney fanatics here? Give me a yes in the chat if so. And so let me ask you this. What makes Disney parks so magical? Is it the rides? Is it the shows? Is it the food? Is it the parades? Is it the cast members? Yes, it's all those things. Disney does 1,000 little things right to make sure you have an amazing experience. And in a way, that's what you want to do with clients that you work with. You want to provide an amazing virtual experience for the client and for the audience. So what should you do now? What should you do at this point? Well, here's what you should not do. You should not just stick your head in the sand and say, okay, we're good. It's okay. I'm going to be all right. Don't just curl up in the fetal position in the corner, suck your thumb, waiting for things to come back to normal. Okay. Don't do that. You can't just stick your head in the sand and wait for that to all go away. Let me give you 3 truths for this current climate. 3 things you need to be thinking about. Number 1 is that this will pass, but it could take a minute. Okay. Obviously, none of us have the magic crystal ball. None of us know what the future looks like, when things will be back to normal, or if they'll ever really be back to normal, but it will pass. Okay. We will get to the other side of this. Number 2 is that there are speakers who sadly won't make it. I don't say this to scare you or to be Debbie Downer, but this is the reality. I've already seen some speakers who decided to quit speaking. They didn't want to pivot to virtual and have chose to shut down instead. If we go back to the beginning, the restaurant analogy, we've seen the same thing happen there. There are restaurants that are pivoting to offer delivery and carry out will make it through this transition, and others didn't want to do that and sadly have had to close. And number 3 is that companies, organizations, and groups are looking for virtual solutions. Now is the time to pivot to offer those. More people are working from home than ever before. More companies and groups and organizations and events are looking for virtual solutions than ever before. This is a huge, huge opportunity for us as speakers. Remember the quote I gave you earlier from Wayne Gretzky. I skate to where the puck is going to be, not where it has been. Things have changed. The puck has moved. We got to pay attention of where it's going. Now, remember, like I said, is that physical speaking and virtual speaking is not an either or choice. You may say, but I don't want to do virtual gigs forever. I miss doing in-person gigs. I get that. Like, I miss giving hugs and high fives and handshakes. And you may be really missing those right now. That's fine. But remember, it's not a one or the other choice. Maybe you pivot to do some virtual gigs while you wait for more in-person events to come back. That's totally fine. Because like we said, your pivot doesn't have to be permanent. Your pivot doesn't have to be permanent. So let me ask you a question. This is not rhetorical. I want you to drop this in the chat. What would being a virtual speaker allow you to do that you currently can't? Again, that's not rhetorical. I want you to drop that in the chat. What would being a virtual speaker allow you to do that you currently can't? Drop that in the chat. What would being a virtual speaker, allow you to do that you currently can't? Let me ask you another question. Again, this is not a rhetorical question, but I want to know, can you do this? Can you do this? Give me a yes. Give me a heck yeah. Give me an oh yeah. Give me something in the chat. Want to make sure. Can you do this? So here's another question for you. Are you ready and willing to do the work necessary to make an impact and an income from your message? Now, at this point, you have a choice. Option number 1 is that you can spend countless frustrating hours trying to make sense of it all. The technology, the slides, the virtual setup, the overall experience. You can spend a lot of time stumbling your way through, and maybe one day it all comes together, maybe. Or number two is you can take the fast track. You can get step-by-step help from professional speaker mentors who are in the trenches with you. And so if you liked what we gave you for free today, you're going to love the rest of the training. This is why we created Virtual Speaking Pro. And so what I'd like to do is for the next couple minutes, I want to just kind of go through, give you an overview of what Virtual Speaking Pro is, what we're going to teach within it. And then we're also going to talk about the bonuses, and then we're going to do some Q&A. Does that sound good? Just give me a yes in the chat. Does that sound fair? All right, so here's the deal. Virtual Speaking Pro is a complete A to Z blueprint for finding and booking virtual gigs and learning to present virtually like a pro. So here's what we're going to include. Here's what you're going to get. First of all, this is a brand new step-by-step video training program, 18 video lessons walking through exactly how you find and book virtual gigs and exactly how to present and create a great experience for clients and the audience. Now, what does the course teach? Well, we're going to walk through how do you translate your in-person talk to a virtual environment. We're going to talk about how to set up a repeatable system to find and follow up on virtual speaking leads. How do you price your virtual speaking? How do you pitch to potential clients? Exactly what lights, microphone, camera you need for your virtual studio, including more free options. You don't have to break the bank on any of these things. What changes to make to your marketing assets to reflect your virtual offering? Which speaking platform is best for your type of presentation? Zoom, GoToWebinar, Be Live. There's all these different options out there. So what's the difference between them? Which one do you need to be paying attention to? How to speak virtually to keep your audience engaged, and how to work with a client before, during, and after your virtual gig to make sure you're providing a professional experience. Look at this. Chris said, these are students of ours, avoided a canceled keynote and turned it into a virtual for a corporation, still maintained 70% of my speaking fee. Talk is this Thursday. Rain said, booked at least 4 weeks as a paid host of Facebook Live events for a cancer foundation. More if they go well, and they are so far. And then Christina said, booked and completed my first paid webinar today, repeat client for a private university here in Hawaii. Now, let's go back to Eric for a second here, because like we talked about, Eric has been speaking full time for several years now, does 40, 50 events a year, and has had COVID really affect his speaking business. So Eric, kind of catch us up on, again, what has happened and where things are now.
All right, Grant. So by the way, I mentioned in a short period of time, I had 9 gigs that were canceled because of COVID. That was 154,000 of revenue affected. That picture there, Grant, was the week that I quit my full-time job. That was my largest amount of people in an audience at that point. That was 2,000 folks. Now, what I had to do, Grant, is I had to pivot and go this virtual route. And so what I was able to do is I was able to replace those 9 paid live gigs with 8 virtual gigs. And I was able to pivot that to about over $100,000 in a few weeks. Because I had so much momentum in my speaking business, I was able to stop on a dime, use the system that we teach, Grant, and then plug that into a virtual setting. Now, one of the things that was really interesting is I was in April, my highest paid gig ever, $20,000. Just, I got to pinch myself when I think about that someone's going to pay me $20,000 to speak, Grant. Well, I had to contact them as I knew they were going to move that event. So they decided that they were going to postpone that event. And I pitched to them the idea. And by the way, we actually show in the course, Grant, the actual pitch that I used. And I pitched them this idea, this virtual event. And they were so impressed by that they hired me to do it twice. Not only did they hire me to do it twice, but then they said, you know what, we're going to go ahead and do that gig that we hired you for, the $20,000 gig, later in the fall. And we want to hire you for part 2 of that next year. So that $20,000 gig turned into a $40,000 gig. And here's the best part about the whole thing, Grant, is right now I'm in the process. This is no lie. This is true stuff. I'm in the process of closing a gig. Get this, double that 20,000. It's a virtual gig. That live gig is 20,000. I'm going to double that with my virtual gig. I never even thought that would have been possible going into COVID, but now it is possible. Now, here's what I love about what we're talking about, Grant, is everything we're teaching is it's not theory. This is stuff that we've tested. I've been out in the front lines testing this, making sure this stuff works, getting these best practices. We put all this stuff, that's information together, Grant, and we put it in this course.
That's awesome, man. So cool. This is actually a picture you shared with some of our students going live for a paid virtual training, 500 attendees. One of the other things that's cool about this picture is this is kind of version 1.0. Again, I think people assume that this is we have to have these fancy setups, and we'll show, if you want to make a fancy setup, we'll show you how to do it. But, this is in where you are right now, kind of version 1.0 with a lamp in the background there, just your laptop and a desk in the basement there. And you've made, again, this is version 1.0. You've made made multiple pivots since then, correct?
Yeah, I have. In fact, I'm embarrassed by that picture. That's so stupid looking. I can't believe that we're even showing this. It's embarrassing. But I just not realized this. You notice to the left of that is the Successful Speaker book. Look at that. I didn't even plan that.
Very good. Very good. So here's what's cool is Eric is the co-teacher of Virtual Speaking Pro. He gives the exact steps and tools he's using right now to book virtual gigs. So he walks through, I share what I'm seeing in the marketplace. He's sharing what he's seeing on the front lines. And we're giving you exactly what is working for virtual gigs right now. Rain said, offered a virtual presentation to a client after hearing about Eric's wins. They were very interested, couldn't afford to pay. So to still give them value but eliminate my prep time, I offered to do a live Q&A about my topic. It was a big hit. I booked 5 one-on-one coaching calls this week with people who attended. Now, in addition to the Virtual Speaking Pro video training, we're going to walk through several different bonuses that we're going to include. First of all, is we're going to give you 8 virtual speaking studio tours. So you're going to see behind the scenes virtual studio setups like Clint Pulver, Neen James, Laura Gassner-Otting, several more, including tour of the virtual tour setups of Eric's office and my office as well. I don't think I've ever really shown around my office, but I'm going to show my camera, my microphone, my lighting, my full setup, my desk, everything that I have in my office, my setup. Eric peppers me. It's about a 30-minute video just kind of walking through my home office here. And so we're going to include that as well. The second bonus we're going to give you is a tech resource gear list, all of the items that we recommend, all the tech, the tools, the gear to set up your virtual studio for success, lighting, mics, cameras, much, much more. All of that is going to be included as well. The third bonus we're going to give you is what we call the virtual vault. Okay, so this is the abstracted proposal. You see that screenshot there on the right. This is the actual one that Eric has been using to book these virtual gigs. This is not like, hey, here's a random template we came up with. No. This is the actual one. You can copy paste, you can customize, make it your own for reaching out and presenting proposals. You're also going to get the pre and post event checklist, every step that we take before and after events to make sure that you're providing a great experience, and you use each gig to book more gigs. And then finally, we're also going to give you our speaking agreement. So when you book a virtual gig, you need to send them an agreement. Okay. You need to have that in place. So we're going to give you ours. So no need to reinvent the wheel on this. We're going to give you everything that you need. We're also, the fourth bonus here is we're going to give you a virtual pivot case study with Eric. So you're going to get a detailed behind the scenes look at how Eric has generated over $100,000 in virtual gigs in less than a month. So again, the recap here, you're going to get the Virtual Speaking Pro video training program. You're going to get the 8 virtual speaking studio tours, the virtual tech resource gear list, the virtual vault, the proposal template, contract checklist, and the virtual pivot case study with Eric. Plus, we have a couple other bonuses as well. Craig said, Grant, I started the Humor Lab group 4 weeks ago. It has grown to over 4,300 members. We started doing virtual comedy, and viewers have been paying to watch so the comedians can make money during this time. Thanks to you and Eric for motivating us. Melody said, I've booked and completed 3 paid speaking gigs since the pandemic. It was supposed to be 1 live workshop in May, turned into 3 virtual gigs that we just completed and are in talks of doing more. Daniel said this, I had a virtual 1-hour speech. I did it for free. They offered the video and offered that I could request leads or give them an offer that if for those that were listening, I'm an author of a book. I gave those that were listening an option to receive my book for free. Asked them if anyone was interested in their service, in his services, in his line of work, or if they had referrals to contact him. So then if you skip down there, he said, so far I've had 3 have requested me to speak on their stage this fall and are contracted. 1 is in the queue. The other is still being looked into. It's all because of this course and give me the right area of work to see this great success. Thanks, Grant and the team. And then Andrew said, I booked 3 online keynotes, all paid. I sent 3 more proposals to interested leads. Have had a great intro call today with a potentially huge client who sounded very interested when I dazzled him with my video conferencing wizardry. Skipped down to the bottom there. I said, oh yeah, I got paid today for 2 of those keynotes. All right. So are you ready to start booking virtual gigs, sharing your message, making an impact and an income? If so, just give me a yes in the chat. Give me a yes in the chat if you're ready to get started. So what's the investment? Now, this is a brand new program. And so most likely we're going to end up offering this for $997. Okay. But what we want to do is we want to give you what we're calling our speaker stimulus pricing. We're going to take $300 off of that. And so you can get Virtual Speaking Pro for just $697, a one-time investment of just $697, or you've got a monthly payment plan there of 4 monthly payments of just $197. So you can pay $197 today and still get access to everything inside of Virtual Speaking Pro. So if you're ready to join, you can click here, click on the side there, or you can go to thespeakerlab.com/virtual. Again, you can click on the side or go to thespeakerlab.com/virtual. Now, some of you may be like, okay, I'm interested, but I understand that maybe there's some risk involved, right? So here's our guarantee for you. Take the course for 60 days, do the work, and give an honest effort. If you don't see results, I'll give you your investment back. We know this works if you do the work. So you have 60 days to go through it. Do the work, okay? Just kicking tires isn't going to do anything for you. Get ready to do the work. But if you do the work and you don't see results, then we will give you your investment back. And let's take it a step further, though, okay? We're going to give you a double your investment guarantee. So if you follow the system we teach, you don't at least double your investment within 1 year, we will give you your money back. So listen, again, we know this works. You got a full year to double your investment. And if you don't, we will give you your investment back. We just know this works. And so we want to make this as dead simple for you as possible. Let me throw in some more bonuses, okay? We're going to give you, this is only for those who join while we're on this training. Only for those who join while we're on this training, I'm going to give you 3 more bonuses, okay? The first bonus is a 15-minute one-on-one video coaching call with a Speaker Lab coach. 15-minute one-on-one video coaching call. We can talk about your virtual speaking. We can talk about your in-person speaking. We can talk about your website, your video. This bonus is only for those who join while we are on this training. Second bonus here is we're going to give you a sample virtual training and bonus commentary from Eric. So we're going to give you Eric's actual virtual presentation that he's been presenting, that he's getting paid for. We're going to give you that as a sample so you kind of get a sense of what is included in that. We're also going to give you a second version of that is him presenting it with some commentaries, kind of like a director's cut for a movie where he's kind of starting and stopping and explaining, okay, now I'm going to show this slide because of this, and then I'm going to transition this way, and here's why I told that story. So you're going to get that as well. Eric also provides a workbook for attendees for these clients that he works with. And so he shows you exactly what is included in that workbook as well. So again, this bonus is only for those who join while we are here on this training. And then the third bonus is Eric's going to give you a step-by-step walkthrough of how to set up your CRM. I know we've had a bunch of questions about the CRM. Again, that's a customer relationship management software. This is really, really important, having that system in place. So Eric walks you through exactly how you set that up. Okay, so you can learn directly from Eric on how he has set up his CRM to reach out to and follow up on his speaking leads, both virtual and live. Now, how do you join? Again, you can click the link on the side there. We got people who are already joining, already taking action, or you can go to thespeakerlab.com/virtual. You're going to see the enrollment form looks just like this. Also, at the bottom, as you're completing your registration and your enrollment, you have the option of also picking up a different training program we have called Art of Speaking. So Virtual Speaking Pro is all about how do you create or how do you find and book virtual gigs? How do you put together virtual presentations? But the Art of Speaking is more about how do you create and deliver a great talk. So it's a great supplemental resource in addition to Virtual Speaking Pro. So this is totally optional, but as you are completing your enrollment for Virtual Speaking Pro, again, you can check that box and you can pick up Art of Speaking as well. Listen, you have the potential. Now you need the plan. Maybe you've been kicking this around for a little while. I'm interested in virtual speaking. I see a lot of virtual speaking opportunities happening. Me personally, I'm seeing more and more speakers on a daily basis interested in virtual speaking who are taking action on virtual speaking. I saw actually today, I saw a speaker friend who said, hey, I'm doing 3 virtual gigs today. I have done a lot of in-person gigs. I've done 2 in a day, 2 different clients. I've never done 3 in a day. And he was doing 3 virtual gigs today, all from his home, never even left. Okay. You have the potential, you can do this, but now you need the plan. You need that step-by-step process. So which kind of speaker will you be? Will you be the dabbler or the action taker? There will be speakers who are here on this training right now who decide, listen, I'm not going to, regardless of COVID, regardless of the economy, regardless of a pandemic, regardless of what's going on in the world, I'm not going to be a victim. I'm serious about speaking. I'm serious about making a difference. I'm serious about sharing my message, and I'm going to take action. I'm not going to wait for things to get back to normal. I'm not going to sit on the sideline and wait for things to resume. I'm going to take action. So which kind of speaker will you be? Will you be the dabbler or the action taker? One of my favorite quotes is this: the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. Second best time is now. We have, again, no clue what things will look like in 6 months, 9 months, a year, a couple years from now, right? I can tell you though that virtual is going to continue to be a force in the speaking industry. So now is not a time to sit back. Now is a time to move forward. So that, again, you're not looking back like, dang, I wish I would have started virtual speaking then. So this is a great opportunity for you to jump in. Speakers are already booking virtual gigs. These are our students that had my first virtual gig about 10 days ago. It went great. Booked and recorded one this week for an event this summer. Had one last week pre-recorded and another one in June. Thanks, Grant. Needed this today. Did my first paid virtual event since this has happened yesterday. I'm excited about that. Listen, speakers are booking virtual gigs. What are you waiting for? So here's a recap of everything you're going to get. Again, you're going to get Virtual Speaking Pro, the video training program, these next 4 bonuses, the 8 virtual speaking studio tours, including the home setups of myself and Eric. You're going to get the virtual tech resource gear list, all the cameras, lights, microphones, all of that we recommend. We're going to give that to you. The virtual vault, the proposal template, contract checklist, all of those you're going to get as well. The virtual pivot case study. Eric's going to walk through step by step what he has been doing, the pivot he's been making to book over $100,000 of virtual gigs. This is stuff that did not exist up until like recently. And he started taking action, made this pivot. He's going to walk through exactly what he has done. Now, these next 3 bonuses, these are only for those who join while we are on the training. Okay. So when we are done here in a few minutes, these bonuses will be expiring. They will be disappearing. So the first bonus is, again, the fast action bonus is this 15-minute one-on-one video coaching call with a Speaker Lab coach. Okay, 15-minute one-on-one video coaching call. It's our chance to hop on a call with you face-to-face and help you however we can in your speaking business. The second fast action bonus is, again, remember, we're going to give you Eric's actual presentation, his actual training that he does with his clients. We're going to give that to you, as well as the bonus commentary from Eric, so you can make sure you're setting up your presentation the way that Eric does. And then the last bonus there is how to set up your CRM. Eric talked about the CRM. The system is the lifeblood of his speaking business. So he's going to walk you through step by step of exactly how to set that up. So again, those 3 bonuses, those 3 fast action bonuses are only for those who join while we are here on this training. All right. So again, at the bottom there, you see, normally we're going to offer this for $997. We're taking $300 off. So you can get that for a one-time investment of just $697. Or again, you can do the payment plan of $197 a month for just 4 months. All right. I know we have our team that is in the chat. So if you have other questions, go ahead and drop those in. Eric and I are going to get to some questions as well. So if you do have additional questions, go ahead and drop those in the chat. We'll get to as many of those as we possibly can. A lot of you are already joining Virtual Speaking Pro. You're taking action. You're not going to be the dabbler. You're not going to sit on the sideline. So huge shout out and kudos to you for taking action. So Eric, anything you want to add before we jump into Q&A?
No, it was fantastic, Grant. I would tell you the bonus material is fantastic. I think what's going to be really cool about the bonus material, Grant, is we're going to walk them through, like when I started from conceptual, how I took a conceptual idea, put that into an abstract, got an event planner to book me for that. But we're actually going to show you. You get to watch the actual event, the recording of the event, so you get to see it from conceptual to actual delivery. That's going to be, it's fantastic. And then the commentary we do on that, and we walk through why we chose certain slides and why we did it a certain way and how we approach the audience. That's worth the price of admission right there. So I'm really excited about the bonus stuff that we put in there.
That's awesome, man. Very cool. Let's talk about a couple questions that I know that we have had coming in. Let's talk about pricing for virtual gigs. That's something that we didn't really address. I know we've had a bunch of questions about that. So I'll talk in a second here about kind of what I'm seeing in the marketplace at large. But I'm curious, how are you thinking about pricing? You do a lot of live in-person events. Now you're doing more virtual events. How are you thinking about pricing?
Yeah. Do we want to show our go back on video for this, or you want to?
Yeah. Let's do that. Good call.
All right.
There we go.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, so, several people have asked this. In fact, one person asked, how can an event planner possibly pay even close to the same amounts they would for in-person events? And the answer to that is a lot of them can't. And so you have to pivot with the event planner. And so the event planner has a budget, and you're going to have to work within that budget. In fact, in the course, Grant, we talk about a methodology on bracket pricing and how you can be flexible with that. And there's a lot of other elements that go into it. One of the variables is the budget that the event planner has. And so if they don't have the budget to pay a virtual speaker as high as they would in live speaker, then you have to account for that. But also keep in mind, you could do 3 live events in one day. And you could make that up really quickly. What are your thoughts on that, Grant?
Yeah. So just in the speakers that I've been talking to, again, like we touched on, virtual speaking is not one of these things that like, hey, this has just been suddenly invented, in the past few months or something. It's actually been around for many, many years in the speaking industry. It's just not one of those things that's super common. It's not really on people's radars up until recently. So I've talked with a lot of speakers who usually do somewhere around 50% of what their normal speaking fee would be for a live in-person event. Now, I've seen that to be the case. Sometimes you go a little bit lower, sometimes a little bit higher, but I've also seen a few speakers who have been charging their full and getting their full speaking fee. So if they're charging, X, they're still getting that to do a virtual gig. Now, a big reason for that is because of the production value, is because of their setup. Now, again, like we talked about, we're going to walk through inside Virtual Speaking Pro how you want to make sure you set it up like a pro and make sure that things look sharp, that things look professional. You can do that, but you don't have to break the bank in order to do that. But that's definitely going to be a factor whenever it comes to what you can charge as a speaker. What are some of the other questions that we're getting?
We got a lot on the CRM. So a lot of folks, I kind of went through that quickly. And so a lot of folks said, what does CRM mean? Again, it's a customer relationship management tool. Some people ask, is that an autoresponder? The typical CRMs are not. There are some that do, like Infusionsoft, I think, is one that can do auto-responding. But the one I use, which is Pipedrive, the one we recommend in our courses is HubSpot, because you can do it for free. One of the things that we're big in, Grant, is we don't want you to break the bank to get your stuff going. In fact, when you guys do the virtual tour of my office, everything you're going to see in my office is less than $400 for my whole setup. So that should be motivating for all of you. But the CRM is a customer relationship management tool. Also, someone asked, how does HubSpot work to get you gigs? All HubSpot is a tool, right? And it's a tool for you to capture the information of the event planners and to follow the methodology, but you actually have to do the work to get the gigs. HubSpot or your CRM will help you stay organized. That's the whole point of a customer relationship management tool. Grant, one of the questions that someone asked is about a specific one is agreements. And I just want to answer this one because we get this question a lot. They said that the client said they already had an agreement that they use and they wanted the speaker to sign that agreement. That's fine. Just sign their agreement. You don't have to send them one. So you're good to go. The bottom line is you just want to get them under contract. So that was a specific one. I just wanted to make sure we answered.
Cool. Another question I saw that had come in quite a bit in the chat was about Virtual Speaking Pro. Is it better for new speakers who are just getting started? I've never done any in-person gigs, really. I've never done any virtual gigs. Or is it more for more experienced speakers? Who would you say that Virtual Speaking Pro is for?
I would say it's for anybody who wants to speak, whether you're active or you're just now starting from scratch. Because one of the things we do, Grant, is we talk about the basics. Finding your topic, the group you want to speak to. So even if you're a new speaker, we're going to get you started. But even if you're an active speaker and you're a veteran, those basics are going to help you, but you're going to get a lot out of it because I was active, right? I was an active speaker. I was speaking actively for four or 5 years before this all hit, and I had to shift to virtual. So if you're an active speaker, you're the same shoes as me. It's like looking in the mirror. So you'll get a lot out of it. But if you're a brand new speaker, we'll take care of you as well because we are going to cover a lot of the basics in the beginning as well.
Very good. Another good question was about how long it takes to see results. So I'll give you a couple thoughts here. One is that, like we touched on, one of the nice things with virtual gigs is there's a much shorter lead time, right? So we are seeing some speakers who are booking things that are happening, a few days later or maybe the next week, because with like we talked about with an in-person event, there's so many details and logistics that oftentimes they're booked 3 to 6 to 9 months ahead of time. But what we're seeing right now is, again, for a lot of virtual things, they may be happening, next week. So Eric, I'm curious for you, how for most of these events that you're doing, the virtual stuff, how quick, what's the timeline between I talk to someone, I book something, and the deal actually, and the gig actually happened? What's that timeline been like for you?
That's a fantastic question. Now, to be fair, I've been doing this for a while, right? So I've got some momentum. But if you compare what it takes to book a live event, a lot of things goes into a live event that virtual events don't have to worry about. Like live events, they got to worry about logistics on site. They got to worry about hotels, catering, all that. So there's a lot that goes into it. So the average time it took me to book a live event, like where I'm physically going somewhere, Grant, on average, it took me 100 days. Virtually, it's different because it's easier for a lot of folks to pull the trigger. Now, a lot of events I'm not doing big conferences virtually. I'm doing a lot of workshops virtually, things like that. So it's easier for me to get those booked. And that only takes me a week to 10 days. In fact, I just talked to an event planner today, and we made a decision on the call right then and there. So literally it took 1 hour. She said, I want to go ahead and hire you. We picked the date right then and there. That never happens, Susie, in a live event.
Right. That's crazy. And so I would also say this, when someone asks, how quickly can I see results? A big variable, big factor is how quickly you're willing to put in the work and how much work you're willing to put in. So an analogy I like to use is, if you wanted to lose 5 pounds, how long does it take to lose 5 pounds or 10 pounds? Like, I don't know. I guess you could do it in a day, maybe a couple of days, maybe a week. For some people, maybe you drag it out to a month or a couple of months or all year, right? Maybe even after a year, you're like, I'm still just breaking even, haven't made those 5 pound progress yet. But really, it comes down to how quickly you are putting in the work. You are putting in the effort. Again, you have the potential. Now you need the plan. We're going to give you exactly what you need to do, but you have to implement. You have to execute. We'll tell you exactly what to do, but it's on you to actually do the work. Now, another good question that we had come up is from people who are going, okay, all this tech stuff, the lighting, the mics, the screens, all of that stuff is intimidating. It's daunting. It's overwhelming. Eric, what would you say to that speaker who's just like, I like the idea of virtual speaking, but all this technology makes me a little nervous?
Well, I say that I'm with you. One thing's, I went to public school in Indiana, Grant. I'm 47 years old. I had a hard time getting on this darn thing. So I'm just trying to figure it out myself. The bottom line is, if you got a message and you want to move forward, you're going to figure it out. Like if you'll notice that picture you saw of my stuff, Grant. Remember that picture you showed, how silly that looked? You should see how much better it is now. And all it is you just learn a little bit and you just take baby steps, right? So your baby step may be, hey, I just want to figure out what software platform I would use. And I want to start to learn Zoom. I just want to figure out what camera I'm going to use, and we'll walk you through that. So it's just baby steps. And by the way, it's not going to be perfect, but you're going to figure it out, and we're going to help you along the way. I'm much better off now where I'm at now, Grant, than I was even 2 weeks ago, just because I took these baby steps.
Yeah, the truth of the matter is we're all figuring it out as we go. And so one of the things that we want to do inside of Virtual Speaking Pro is we want to show you both ends of the spectrum. Listen, if you're like, I geek out on this stuff, I want to do all the bells and whistles, that's fine. You can totally do that. But if you say like, listen, I don't know any of that stuff. I have a budget of $100. That's fine. In fact, this microphone I'm using right now is a $50 microphone. This camera that I use is maybe a $50 camera. I have a ring light up here that I borrowed from a friend. I mean, these three things combined here cost me $100, right? If that maybe. And so these are things that I've had for years, right? So we're not saying like, hey, you need to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars here. We want to show you how to do very, very simple. Again, version 1.0. And then you can improve as you go. Now, I notice here that we still have quite a few people that are here that are joining us. And so I know for some of you, maybe you're hanging out because you're on the fence, right? Man, I'm interested in Virtual Speaking Pro. I know I want to do some virtual gigs, but I'm worried about something, or I'm on the fence for whatever reason. So I'm curious, if that's you, if you're on the fence right now, would you just type in the chat fence? Just type in the chat fence. You're on the fence for whatever reason. So just type in the chat fence. And so here's my challenge for you. If you're on the fence for whatever reason, my challenge to you is that you would get off the fence, that you would make a decision one way or the other. When we wrap up here in a few minutes, I want you to ultimately have made a decision. If you decide, hey, Virtual Speaking Pro is not right for me, that's fine. Eric and I are going to be just fine with that. Okay. Our whole team, we're going to be okay. But if you're like, no, I'm serious. Like, I want to do this. I want to be a virtual speaker. Then you need to invest in yourself. You need to invest in Virtual Speaking Pro. Now, I know for some of you, maybe part of the reason that you're on the fence is finances, right? Grant, what if I don't have the money? But I want you to understand there's a big difference here between spending money and investing money. When you spend money, there's no ROI. There's no return on that investment. So when you spend money on furniture or clothes or a car. Like there's nothing wrong with any of those things. Eric and I have spent money on those things, but that money is gone, right? You got that thing and nothing else. Versus when you invest money, there is an ROI. There is a return on that investment. You get that money back plus more. So when you invest in real estate or retirement or education or knowledge or training that you actually do something with, you get that money back plus more. And so it's the reason that my wife and I, we actually invested in a rental property last year, right? So we invested in real estate because we know that we get that investment back plus more. When my wife and I, when we put money in our retirement every single month, we've been doing this for years and years and years, diligently, whatever amount, we put money into our retirement, not as an expense, but as an investment, because we know we're going to get that investment back. And the same thing is true with education, knowledge, coaching, training that you do something with. It's the reason that whether you like it or not, that people invest money into college, because they know, like, if I take what I learn and I do something with it and I go into the workforce and I go into the marketplace, I want to get that investment back plus more. And so listen, I understand that for some of you, maybe that there's economic uncertainty and that sort of thing. I'm not making light of that at all. I totally understand that this is a weird time right now. But if you're serious about booking virtual gigs, we know that if you take what we teach and you do the work, that you will see the results. And again, if you don't, we have those two guarantees there. Okay. Again, you have the 60-day money back guarantee and you have the double your investment guarantee. We know this works if you do the work. In fact, one of the things that's really, really exciting to us is, like Eric mentioned, is the short timeline for booking gigs, right? Instead of having to wait several months to book something or do something, you may be able to take action and maybe book something happening next week. I don't know. It's absolutely possible. And so you can, for some people, maybe you choose to do the payment plan just to kind of break it up and kind of help with the cash flow. Totally understand that. But it may be possible for you to book and earn back your investment before you even finish the payment plan, right? Which that would be awesome. We want you to make back your investment plus much, much, much more. But it comes down to you doing the work and investing in yourself. All right. Eric, what other questions have we had coming in here?
There's one classic question, Grant, and I can't wait for you to answer this question. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready. Here
Someone says, I don't have the space for it, meaning that their space is tiny. You have to share the story about your friend in Boston.
Okay, so totally understand that. So one of the virtual speaking tours, we talked in that first bonus there, the bonus number 1, the 8 virtual speaking studio tours, including the home setups of myself and Eric. All right, so one of the studio tours, I'm really excited about this one. This is a speaker friend of mine who lives in Boston in a 650 square foot apartment with her husband and 2 kids. 650 square foot apartment with 4 people there, and she has a great virtual setup. And it's in her kitchen. She uses a green screen. She shows exactly how she does it. It looks fantastic. I've done multiple interviews with her over the years, and I had no idea that's how small her space was. She gives a quick tour. She's like, look over, that's the bedroom right there, right? Here's the entry right there. Here's a living room right there. And she makes it work in this tiny little area with sharing it with 3 other people there. So again, you don't need some big, massive space. If you don't have that, that's fine. If she can make it work in a 650 square foot apartment shared with 3 other family members, you can make it work in your space as well. That's a great question.
So Grant, we've got a lot of questions about, and this is a great question, and that is, how do you find event planners? How do you find gigs? That's usually the biggest question most speakers have, is where do you find all these gigs? And so I would tell you that this is probably the one thing that I've mastered really well. In fact, I enjoy this so much so, and Grant, you and I have talked about this before, I enjoy this so much so that it's almost more fun to get the gig. And then once I get, I'm like, oh man, I actually got to do the gig now. And so I actually enjoy getting the gig more. And so one of the things we talk about in the course is you got to identify who your ideal client is. Like for me, my ideal client is usually business professional men and women between the ages of 35 and 55. And I like that age group, because that's an age group where they've kind of gotten past where the glow of starting a career, and they realize, I've got a mortgage now, I've got kids. This really wasn't what I thought life was going to be like, because I went through that as well. And so I identified those are the kind of people I want to work with. And I find that those folks gather at associations. Did you know that there's an association for everything? whatever you do, whatever your profession is, there's an association that supports that. There's even an association for associations, and every state has that. And so what I did is I started working with associations. I started working with utility associations and bankers associations. But here is the one tip that I will give everybody. Start with the people that you know. You will be amazed, Grant, at how many people you have in your network right now that they're a professional. They could be a chiropractor. They could be a dentist. They could be a football coach. They could be a professor. They go somewhere for training. They go somewhere for more information. I just go to those folks. The people that I know, I ask them, where do you go? Where do you gather? Have you been to a virtual event lately? What event did you go to? And then I find out where that was, Grant, and I ask for a connection or a referral, and I find that they were very happy to refer me to an event planner. That's how I got started. So start with your network. In fact, we teach that. We have a priority list in the course on how to do that.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Now we have a lot of people who are continuing to join. So welcome to all of you. I know that the timer has struck 0. We're going to allow you to continue to join in order to still get those fast action bonuses. Now, like we've said, in just a couple of minutes, when we wrap up here, when Eric and I turn off our cameras, these 3 fast action bonuses will be disappearing. So if you can keep stalling and keep us talking here with your questions, you'll buy yourself a little bit more time on joining and still getting the fast action bonuses. Now, I know we also had a good question from a couple different people about international speaking, right? So I am, you and I are located here in the US, Eric, but we have people who are all over the world. So does this work for them? So we have speakers in all 50 states, and then I believe 39 different countries around the world that we have worked with. Now, although the majority of the people that we work with are certainly here in the US, the nice thing with virtual is, again, this is a pandemic that's affecting the world. It's not like, hey, it's just affecting Europe, or it's just affecting the US, or it's just affecting Australia. It's literally affecting the world. So what we want to do is the systems and processes that we walk through and show you for how to find and book virtual gigs and how to present virtually. You may need to change and adjust slightly based on, customs or things that may be happening in your part of the world. But this is designed to work for any speaker who's interested in virtual speaking. So definitely check it out. Also, we had some questions about Booked and Paid to Speak. So some of you may know that we have a different training program called Booked and Paid to Speak. So we had some questions about what's the difference between Booked and Paid to Speak and Virtual Speaking Pro. So Booked and Paid to Speak is our step-by-step process for how to find and book gigs. It's kind of our flagship core program on teaching this, especially in a live in-person type environment. So typically what we think of as far as in-person speaking gigs. Virtual Speaking Pro is more specifically about virtual gigs, right? So there's a little bit of overlap in terms of the principles. So we teach you need to speak to one specific audience and solve one specific problem. We teach that in Booked and Paid to Speak, and we teach that in Virtual Speaking Pro. But inside Booked and Paid to Speak, we don't really talk about virtual speaking. It's not something that we get into, but everything in Virtual Speaking Pro is specifically for virtual speaking. So if you have Booked and Paid to Speak and you want to do virtual gigs, you need to get Virtual Speaking Pro. You need to have both of those. If you're invested in Virtual Speaking Pro and you're interested in doing more in-person gigs as those start to come back, then you need to get Booked and Paid to Speak. Okay. So again, like we talked about, your pivot isn't permanent. So you can say, I want to focus on virtual and then I want to do in person, or I've been doing in person and I want to do virtual. That's totally fine. So 2 separate programs depending on what your goals are. So if you wanted to book virtual gigs right now, Virtual Speaking Pro is the program that you need. All right. Again, a lot of people continuing to join. So welcome to all of you guys. Eric, what are the questions? Any other questions that we've missed here?
We get a question on time concern. I'm not sure I have a lot of time. And I would tell you that nobody was busier than I was when I started Grant. I was a full-time business. I have 3 kids. They're teenagers. I'm a softball coach. I help my son with his running. Plus I was doing my full-time day job and doing this on the side. Here's the trick when you don't have a lot of time. You carve out whatever time you have, Grant, and you be consistent at it. If you've got 15 minutes a day, what are you going to do in that 15 minutes? That's why I love stuff like what we're doing, Grant, is because if you don't got a lot of time, that's why this is perfect for you, because we help you cut through all that. We give you exactly what you need to do with the limited amount of time you have. So if you can give it 15 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day, then that's going to help you move the needle as long as you're consistent. Grant, we get a lot of questions like we have a person here talking about the youth market, and people talking about different markets. They're concerned that the youth market is not a good market for virtual. I know you come from a youth background. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do. That's a really good question. In fact, I've been talking with a lot of youth speaker friends. I know a lot of people in the industry and are asking them, hey, what are you doing? How are you pivoting? One is that I've heard that a lot of events are continuing to happen into later in the year. And so speakers are still booking some of those. But also I'm seeing that a lot of virtual opportunities for youth are happening not live, but pre-recorded. So they might pre-record some type of encouraging message for a high school or for a student organization, and send that, and then that is sent out to students, from the state advisor or the director or the principal or a counselor. It's being distributed that way. So in fact, just a couple of days ago, a friend of mine, Clint Pulver, he still does some youth engagements. He did a virtual youth gig for an awards banquet, an end of the year awards banquet that he was able to be at live. And so there are still live opportunities that are happening in all different industries right now. So it's not, exclusive to just corporate or just to adults or just to associations. Even in the youth industry, there's a lot of opportunities. I would say more of them are pre-recorded, which actually for some speakers, they like that a little bit more, right? Because when you're doing something live, you have the pressure on like, I said something wrong, or I had a technical issue or whatever. But when you're doing something that's pre-recorded, it gives you a chance to really make sure it's polished, it's delivered well, that you don't run into any technical issues there. And so there's certainly a lot of opportunity there. Now, I also know that we have so many people who are on this training. And so we may have briefly crashed part of the website. So can a handful of you maybe go check the speakerlab.com/virtual. I want to make sure that link is still working. So if you could have a couple of you go check that, just give me a yes in the chat. Let us know if that is still working. Make sure that we didn't have any issues. I think we had a brief hiccup. The team said that's already fixed. We're back up and running, but I just want to make sure that, again, the enrollment page at the speakerlab.com/virtual is still working. So if anyone can let us know that in the chat, that would be awesome.
So Grant, someone asked, can we recap the 4 keys to success as a successful speaker, a virtual speaker? That's a good question. Number 1, just remember, solve one specific problem for one specific audience. That's key for anything, not whether it's virtual or live. You got to get that down. Number 2, be proactive in marketing your virtual solution. That's where we walk you through the system, but you got to be proactive. You can't sit and wait for someone to come to you. You're going to have to be proactive. Number 3, set up your virtual setup like a pro. So don't spend all this money on your virtual stuff. Don't get the cart before the horse. You want to get some gigs first. And so when I forgot my first gig, that's when I started scrambling to make sure I got my setup correctly. So that's number 3. And then finally, master your virtual experience. And that is, that's what we start talking about, thinking about what that virtual experience is going to look like, how you're going to present yourself virtually. Are you going to do a video like this? Or is it going to be just slides? If you do slides, how are you going to use those slides? So those are the 4 steps, the 4 keys to success. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, awesome. We had another question that was asking about a replay. And so when we wrap up here in just a couple of minutes, we will be sending out a replay. Now, again, let me make it clear. I know I've said this a few times, but those 3 fast action bonuses, those will be disappearing here in a couple of minutes. So we're going to send out the replay. We're going to give you a couple of days to think about it. Totally understand that. You want to talk to the spouse or you need to sleep on it. Totally get that. That's fine. No pressure whatsoever. But again, if you want to get these 3 fast action bonuses, they're only for people who join while we're here on the training. All right. So you can wait. You can get Virtual Speaking Pro over the next couple of days. But again, those 3 fast action bonuses will be disappearing.
So Grant, we had a great question. We had a person pop in here that actually got in late because they were actually presenting virtually. I thought that was pretty cool. So they're awesome. Presenting virtually, and now they're coming to learn more about how to, and I find that's what successful people do. Even though she's out there speaking virtually, she still wants to learn more. So she had a good question. Yeah. She said, are pre-recorded events as successful as live then? I kind of thrive on live chat comments from viewers and feel like live events is more authentic. And what I would say, Grant, is it probably would be for you, this person asking the question, because that's where their skill set is. And so if you go back to what we talked about before, if your skill set is live, then you lean into that and you're going to be very successful at it. However, if your skill set is not live, then maybe pre-record is better for you, where if you really need to edit, you're a perfectionist, you don't really thrive in settings that are unique and can change and they're constantly dynamic and things can go wrong. So I think you got to lean in and be very authentic. So that's a great question. So I think for you, you're asking this question, then live would certainly be for you.
Cool. All right. Well, tell you what, if there are no other questions, we'll go ahead and wrap up. Again, thank you guys so much for being here. We know that you're busy. We know that you have a lot going on. We hope this has been helpful. We hope that, listen, even if you didn't enroll and join Virtual Speaking Pro, we hope that you take everything that we've shown you here, that you implement it, that you apply it, that you do something with it. Okay. If you just come here and you're like, oh, that sounds good. Oh, that makes sense. But you don't do anything with it, it's a waste of time. Okay. So we want you to take action with it. Now, I know for some of you, as you're completing your enrollment in Virtual Speaking Pro, again, we'll give you another minute or two here on wrapping things up so that you get those fast action bonuses. But when you go to thespeakerlab.com/virtual, if you do run into any issue or if you have any further questions, in the lower corner there, we do have live chat available. So our team is on standby, ready to answer any questions that you may have or just further clarify anything. If you run into any issues while you're completing your enrollment, then again, you've got the email there, support@thespeakerlab.com. Listen, we don't want to just say, hey, here's a program, you're on your own, good luck. We want to do everything we can to ensure your success as a virtual speaker. So please let us know how we can best serve and support you. All right. So again, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. Eric, thanks for being here, my friend. And again, go take action, do the work. In fact, here, I'm gonna read you a little excerpt from The Successful Speaker. Okay. If you don't have the book, go pick it up. So, and I wasn't even planning on doing this, but hang on. Okay. The dedication of the book. Okay. If you've read the book, then you know the dedication says, this book is dedicated to speakers everywhere who desire to make an impact. The world needs your message. You can do this. Listen, you can do this right now. There's a lot of people I know that are hurting, who are discouraged, who are scared, who are worried, who are anxious, who are fearful. I know that the world is a weird place right now, but people need your message, whether you're speaking to companies, whether you're speaking to associations, whether you're speaking to youth or individuals or families or couples or children, whoever you're speaking to, whatever the message is that you're sharing, the world needs your message. You can do this. All right. We need you. So again, you got another couple minutes to enroll in Virtual Speaking Pro. And again, if you have questions, please let us know. Otherwise, we appreciate you being here and hope you have a great rest of the day. You're awesome.